You can draw this in Procreate. In this easy Procreate painting tutorial, I am going to show you how you can create these watercolor jellyfish. It's super easy. I'll take you through all the steps and you will end up with a super fun result. The canvas we're working on is 2500 pixels by 2500 pixels, and the color palette we'll be using is linked in the description. It's totally free, of course. So if you're ready, let's get started. All right, let's start out by creating a sketch of our jellyfish. For that, you can just use a black or any color you like, actually. And I'm going to use the Pelion brush, which you can find under pencils. But of course, you can use any sketching brush you like. Now for the opacity, I have it set to 100% and the size is at 19%. And now we are going to sketch out the main shape of our main jellyfish. So it's like a rounded top, and then the bottom part will be wobbly, like wavy, a wavy shape at the bottom. This is like the main shape of the jellyfish. And then it'll have these big eyes. That will make it look cute. Something with big eyes looks cute, like a baby. And he'll have a happy smile. Usually a smile is happy. And we'll make like a line on the inside, like there's a shape on the inside. Just some lines like this, as if he has like 2 layers. And you can also create some like bubbles or rounded shapes, adding some texture to him. And that will make the tentacles. You can make a wavy shape and then add these bumps like this. And you can make multiple of these tentacles, and they don't have to be perfect. You can just sketch them out a little bit. And then you can make extra tentacles that don't have these like fringes. I'm not sure what to call them, but yeah, you see what I mean, these like wobbles. And you can make some more simple tentacles. And some will have a little like curl that will make it look extra playful. Yeah, maybe one like this. He looks super happy. Now we are going to add some more. We are going to add some smaller friends. So you can just make a curve like this, then a wobbly underside, something like this. Then the eyes, big round eyes. And you can play around with the smiles a bit. You can make an open smile like that, or just a simple smile like this. Then you can add that extra line, a little bit like broken line, and then those tentacles. Or are they even called tentacles? I'm not even sure. And then these wobbly shapes. And then the extra tentacles with some curves. Some curlies at the bottom. Just something like this. Now we can make another one over here. Again, rounded shape, curved shape at the bottom, big eyes, and a smile. You could also try some different expressions. You could also make like a wiggly mouth like this if you want one of them to be a bit confused. You can play around with that. Also for this one, you can add some of these little like bubbles, little circles for some texture. And this is just a rough sketch that will help us with the line art. So you just want to try some things out, figure out the tentacles and the shapes of the jellyfish. So we have these, and then over here, let's make another one. And you can also play around with the shape of like the head. Maybe this one is a little bit more like elongated. And you can play around with the wobbles a little bit at the bottom. Adding the eyes. Little smile. That extra line on the inside, but a broken line. And those little circles. And then the tentacles. And then also some of these tentacles. Maybe some of them have a little curl at the bottom. And then finally one over here. We have some space left. Again, semicircle. And then that wavy bottom. Then the eyes, 2 dark circles. And a mouth. Let's make this one open again. He's so happy. Then that extra line. Some of these dots. And then those tentacles. So I just make a few of those tentacles with those like little fringes, and then some simple ones. All right, now we are going to create the line art, the inking. So let's lower the opacity of this layer that we have. Let's set it to 30%, then tap the plus. And then for the brush, let's go to the inks. And I use the Wapping brush. It is nice and like irregular. So make a bit of like a messy inky art. And this is also great because the lines will be a little bit messy, so you don't have to worry about the perfect line. Now the opacity of this brush is at 100%, size is at 20%. And now we are just going to follow our sketch lines. So you can go in here. And you can just go ahead and follow that line. You can rotate. And you can see how nice and messy that line is. So no need for perfectionism. A nice inky line. And here for that inner line, you can use a bit less pressure. Like this, so the lines get a little bit thinner. Also for these little circles, and you don't have to follow your sketch exactly, of course. Maybe you can add some more. Then for the eyes and the mouth, and then the tentacles. This also doesn't have to be perfect. Just make some nice wobbly shapes. And it's actually nice if it's a little bit messy. That'll add to the effect. A bunch of these lines. Just something like this. And then just do this for all of the jellyfish until you have something like this. I hope you are having fun so far creating your own jellyfish. If you would like to have even more Procreate tutorial fun, then I would highly recommend checking out my Patreon page. I have more than 250 Procreate drawing and painting tutorials over there, so that should keep you busy for at least a year. And it's the perfect way to upgrade your Procreate skills. So I will just leave a link for you down in the description in case you want to check that out. It would be great to see you there. But now let's continue. Now at this point, we can turn off our sketch layer and it's time to start painting. So first let's select that bottom layer and then tap the plus. And then for our brush, We will go to the watercolor brushes right over here, the watercolors, and let's use the Tidewalker brush. And then for the background, let's add some blue. Let's go for this color, first color in the first row. Let me zoom out just a little bit. The opacity of this brush is at 100%. Let's set the size to maybe 55. Let's see. That's nice. And then let's gently go over the background and not lift your pen too often to nicely blend in these colors. Or well, it's just one color, of course, but to nicely make that blend. Get that nice watercolor effect. Just going outside of the edges of our jellyfish. And then let's also add the second color in the first row, or well, the only row, for some more blue. Blending that in nicely and using very little pressure with my pen. So something like this. Then let's make a new layer on top. Let's tab the plus, and then for the brush, I'd like to use the Bridgewater brush, and for the color, let's go for this one. That's the third color in the first row. Let's check the size. That's perfect. Opacity at 100%, size at 12. And let's just color in this jellyfish. And you don't have to be super tidy. Don't worry about that. You can make multiple layers of that color, but keep it a little bit translucent. Let's also color this one. And then for the other jellyfish, let's start with this color, fourth color in the only row that we have. And with this brush, you can play around a bit with the tilt of your pen. So roughly color these in. Then let's switch to this color. Let's first go for this one. That's the seventh color. Adding some of those reddish tones, blending those in. Also here. And this one. Then we'll switch to this color, which is the sixth color, and go even darker. Also a little bit here underneath. We'll create the tentacles later. We can already add a bit of shading there. Sorry, not that one, but this one. And then for the other jellyfish, let's go for this color, fifth color in the, what is it, first row, only row. And let's add some of this darker purple. You can add some blobs. Go over like this. And also here on the underside a little bit. And then for this one, then let's go back to the brushes and use the black Swan brush. This one is nice for the tentacles. And let's go for this color, third color in the first row, only row. Opacity of the brush is at 100%. Let's set the size to 25. And then let's just go here and create some of these shapes. And you don't have to follow your inking lines exactly. You just want some these purple tentacles also here. Now let's also give these few of these purple tentacles. And then let's switch to this color, 7th color, in our only row. Add some of these tentacles. You see, you can keep it nice and messy. Then let's switch to this color, 8th color. This yellow, we can also add some yellow in between. It's a nice contrast. Purple and yellow are complementary colors, so they are opposite on the color wheel, which makes the colors stand out nicely this way. Just a few of these strokes, and let's also add some yellow like here at the top, as if there is some light hitting these jellyfish at the top. Also here, and on this one. Then let's make a layer on top. Let's tap the plus, and let's go back to those inks and use the Wapping brush, and let's pick white. Let's double tap here for white, and then let's go on the inside of the mouth to make that white, and for this one too, and this one. And I also want some highlights on the eyes. For that, we need to go on top of our line art. So first let's go here, then tap the plus, and then let's go in here and create these little highlights. Not too big. They don't have to be perfect. They can be a little bit messy. Here we could go for like 2, like 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom. And then maybe we can also add a few like specks. Sometimes with watercolor, you can add salt to your painting while it's wet, and that'll give this speckled effect. And let's do that by going to the other Procreate library. Here we need to go to the top, then back to libraries, then to the classic library, and then to spray paints, and then we can use the flex brush. And we can go to this layer, layer 5, where we have the white of the mouth. And then let's check the size. Opacity is at 100%, size at 11. And we can just go over some of these areas, add a few of these flicks, like we're adding salt. And then finally, for a final touch, you could add paper texture to your illustration. The way to do that is by going to the top, and then you can go to like the top layer, and then go to the wrench, then to add, then to insert a photo, and then add a photo with a paper texture. Then we can zoom out. You can cover the entire drawing with that texture. Then go to the layer, tap the N, then let's scroll up to multiply, and then lower the opacity. Let's go for 60%. And then you have a nice paper texture on your illustration. And then we're done. I hope you have enjoyed the tutorial, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for watching.